Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Dear students, welcome to another episode of Moroccan Success Stories. Today's distinguished guest, Dr. Belkhayat Mohammed's resume is very impressive, to say the least. Before introducing him, I just want to let you know that today's webinar's format will be a bit different from the previous ones. We'll have Dr. Belkhayat tell us his story himself, and then we'll have some of our students ask him some questions directly and hear some words of wisdom from a fellow countryman who's accomplished so much in the land of opportunity. He is yet another great ambassador of Morocco in Uncle Sam's land. Students, remember what we emphasized in our previous webinars. Surround yourselves with positive people. Stay away from toxic people. Good afternoon, Dr. Belkhayat. Thank you for your time and welcome to our webinar. Please, Dr. Belkhayat, tell us about your unbelievable journey.
Good afternoon. Can you see me now?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we can see you. We can hear you. You're looking wonderful, sir.
Thank you. I'm trying to share my screen with everybody here. So let me just give me 1 second.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Take your time, sir. Take your time.
So much for inviting me to speak to your students. It's a great opportunity for me to also give back to Morocco, my native country. And I have a lot of respect for the work that you do, educating our young and inspiring them. My message to your students who are listening is to hurry up. And there's a wonderful world waiting for you. There's so much to do to accomplish, and we need you. That's the message. The other thought that I'd like to share and encourage you to reflect on is not to doubt yourself. I know when I was in your shoes, I also was wondering what the future may bring and what I would do and what type of education I should pursue. And I encourage you not to doubt yourself. Once you make a decision, go for it and pursue your dreams, pursue your education. I'd also like to encourage you to reflect on the fact that knowledge is power. That's what you need to advance in life. That's what you need to improve yourself. And that's what you also need to improve others, because improving oneself without giving back, without helping others, is really halfway. It's only going halfway. So I encourage you to continue your education. Certainly achieving high school diploma is a wonderful thing, and it opens doors for you, but don't stop. And in that vein of continuing education, I'd like to share my experience with you. If we go to the next slide, please. So everybody fails, and the important thing is what you do with those experiences. I personally had quite a few experiences that I would like to share with you. When I was in elementary school, I had a lot of struggles. I needed to be tutored. My mother, God bless her, she decided, she noticed that my grades were behind. And she said, look, we're going to get you a tutor. And they did. And it was a friend of the family that decided to help me. And I still remember him very well. a very smart man, a very educated man, and he was able to get me to improve myself in elementary school and pass elementary school. When I was in high school, I decided to go for Mathématiques et Techniques, which was a branch of technical sciences in Morocco in the 70s and the 80s. And it was a difficult branch. That's what my heart was. I wanted to pursue math and physics. Even though I wasn't very good at it, I was passionate about it. And I remember my professor telling me, look, if you don't improve yourself, you're going to actually stay there. You know, in high school, you better start making a tent, because you're going to stay there. You're going to be camping there. And I remember that to this day, that it was somewhat discouraging, but I didn't let it stop me. Also, I knew when I came to the US, I needed to take the TOEFL test, which is the test as a test of English as a foreign language. And I failed it the first time I took it. I also remember taking a speech communication class in college, and that's, by the way, a thing that I remember very, very distinctly, having fear to talk in public and not being able to continue my talk during class. And it was somewhat devastating for me, because I thought, well, I'm never going to learn to talk to people. I encourage you to take these types of classes, to speak in public, to be able to communicate your thoughts clearly. That's a very important step that I encourage everyone to take. I also remember taking the differential equations course and not being able to pass it the first time. My first electronics project was also a very difficult challenge for me. And I remember arguing with the professor that the grade that I got was not what I deserved. But at the end of the day, I had to redo that project. The GRE entrance exam for the PhD program, I had to take it twice. The point that I'm trying to relay here is that you will have challenges in your way, and there's no doubt about that. And you will start from different places. You know, some people may be richer than you. They may be smarter than you. They may have a better situation than you. The start doesn't really matter. It's where you end up and the decisions that you take along the way that really will affect your career. Next slide, please.
Be afraid of failing, right?
Yes, sir.
Why is it so important to fail? I mean, to fail before you succeed?
Well, if you don't try, obviously, if you don't try, you're not going to fail and you're not going to succeed. But if you try, you will have a chance that you may fail, you know, and that failure is an indication that you're trying, that you're making some sort of progress. And so failure can be taken two ways. It can be either taken as, oh no, I'm not good at this, or I tried and now I know not to try that again. I'm going to try something differently. I remember reading about a very important physicist. His name was Michelson. And while I was teaching at the Naval Postgraduate School, Michelson, was a very, very respected figure that you can see at the Naval Postgraduate School, honored by the name on a building and things like that. And what he did was, this was in the 1800s, early 1900s, was to measure the speed of light. And every time he measured it, he was trying to determine whether there is the ether or not. There's this thing that the light actually travels in. But every time he measured it, he couldn't actually show that there was such a thing as the ether. It was a failure. His measurement was a failure. But every time he wrote to his customer or his sponsor, he said it was a success. Why was it a success? Because he actually was able to measure the speed of light. Even though it didn't show what he was trying to show, he still was able to measure the speed of light.
Amen.
And so it's always important to see the successes in what we try.
Mm-hmm. Important. Okay, sir.
Next slide.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. If you go back to just one slide, if you go back. So there, I have started my career at a Quran school, which is, in education, that's what you did in Morocco in the 70s and the 80s. And I learned a lot. And I memorized a lot of, verses that included ethics and morals and how to be good and, to treat others and to give alms those formative years were very, very important. They were also very challenging in terms of memorization. So my mother noticed that I was having a little bit of a tough time, and she moved me to a nun school that taught French. So I was able to balance both sides, a little bit of the memorization, which is extremely important, as well as a little bit of the critical thinking and doing some things that you could choose to do. Like they taught us how to swim. They taught us French. They gave us chocolate at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So there were some nice, fun things that I remember about that school as well. Next slide. I give this as part of my presentation to colleagues here as well, and that is to be always very proud of what you do, both for Morocco as well as the US. And it's always important to remember some of the beautiful relationships that we have between Morocco and the US. For example, Morocco was the first to recognize the US independence. It's the longest friendship treaty between two countries. And that's something that both Moroccans and Americans are proud of.
Yes.
We also have in the world the first university still continuing to function in the world. That is the Qarawiyyin. That's something that has educated so many people across the centuries. In fact, Pope Sylvester II was educated there in the 13th century, and also Maimonides was educated in Al Qarawiyyin. These are philosophers and very important figures in the history of mankind. Of course, Morocco is known for its phosphates, and that's something that I encourage everybody to study and to understand and to know and to work in the area to provide, businesses, side businesses for, not the main thing, but the derivatives of those. And we can talk about that later. It's also very interesting to know that Morocco is home to the oldest Homo sapien in the history of mankind, 300,000 years ago. Morocco is named after Marrakesh, so you're lucky to be in Marrakesh. It's actually referred to as God's country in Berber and Amazigh. Next slide. So this is my basically inspiration, if you will, when I was young. I saw my family huddled around TV, black and white TV, during the moon landing. In 1969, the United States landed on the moon. So I was very, very touched by that and very inspired by that. And so it really started my scientific career because that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to understand how mankind can reach so far and be able to visit the moon, and God knows what was on the moon. It was just a very, very important moment in my life. The objects on the right are things that I lived with through my adolescence. Science et Vie was a magazine that I used to read that really allowed me to think outside the box. That little calculator was by chance found its way into my dad's shop, and I was able to program it and learn about programming at a young age. And also the Tout l'Univers, which was an encyclopedia that my dad was generous enough to buy me at that time, which was expensive. And then, of course, the electronics. I used to build electronics at home as small projects. Things like DIY. If you're familiar with DIY on YouTube, do it yourself type of things. And next slide. So this is Moulay Ismail. You know, I went to high school and public school in Meknes, and I learned a lot there. And that's basically where I got my high school diploma from. At that time, in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, there were still some French professors that are teaching there. And so we got to see both sides, you know, the Moroccan culture as well as some of the French culture. And it was very interesting time. But I think it was towards the end of that phase in the public schools in Morocco. Next slide. So after high school, I decided to come to the United States, and my dad again was generous enough to give me some money, $4,000 in back pocket, and I wanted to come and pursue my education. I took odd jobs, wanted to be an astronaut really, and then I pursued electrical engineering so that I could have a job and work. I did actually compromise on my dreams, but you know, when you want to start a family, you want to be able to stay in the scientific community. Sometimes that's what you have to do. You know, you have to adapt to the world. So, and then of course I worked at Duke Power, and then I secured my first job at the Savannah River site, which I'll talk about in a moment. And I just kept working on my education. I didn't start my PhD until I was 35. Next slide. This is Savannah River site. It's a very important lab in the world. That was my first job. I had the opportunity, and I was lucky enough to get a position as an electrical engineer. And what I did was mostly look at the energy audits of the lab, how much energy was consumed by the various activities in the lab. It's an important lab because it was the first lab to discover the neutrino. I don't know if you have heard of the neutrino, but it's the smallest particle known to man in terms of mass, and it can go through light years of lead, that's the material lead, and not touch anything. The interesting thing about neutrino is that it has so many applications if we can actually harness it. Communication is one thing. Detection of harmful materials is another. There's so many interesting applications, but it's very, very difficult to detect it. So detectors are still being developed for it. Next slide. I also taught at the Naval Postgraduate School. This is a Navy school where naval officers actually go to get their master's degree. I was able to get a position to teach electrical circuits, motors and generators, controls, 2 years. And I learned a lot from those officers. I learned a lot how ships work, how Navy ships work. And it was a very interesting time to teach. When when you teach, you not only teach, but you also learn. They say the first time you teach a subject is the first time you actually learn it. So you have to keep in mind that a teacher never stops learning. Next slide. David Taylor Research Lab. The interesting thing about this place is that it was one of the first labs in the world to actually measure the resistance of the ships, the hull, as they move through water. So it's a very interesting history. In order to move a ship in the water, you need a lot of power, and you need to understand its stability. You need to understand how it moves before you can actually power it. And David Taylor Lab was doing that for ships. An interesting fact about David Taylor Lab also is the Hunt for the Red October. If you haven't seen that movie, I encourage you to see it. There's a segment in the movie in the Hunt for Red October with Sean Connery where they talk about David Taylor Lab. And next slide. This is Purdue University. As I mentioned, I had 2 children. My wife and I had 2 children. My oldest, Noah and Nora, and I decided to go and get my PhD, and I was 35. And I had to spend 3 years at Purdue. It was a wonderful experience. Again, I learned a lot, and I was able to contribute through my thesis. My topic was in energy and power systems. They were actually, I was lucky enough to make a real contribution in the stability of grid power. When you're trying to connect energy sources to the grid, you're able to, through some of the things I've done in my thesis, you're able to make it stable. Next. This is my dad and mom, الوالد الله يرحمها. الوالد ما زال عايش الله يخليه على خير. He's in Meknes, and this is when they came to visit me at Purdue and celebrate with me the PhD graduation. So I was very happy. As you can see, after 3 years of work, I had a little beard, no time to shave. So you can see that the 3 years were not an easy thing to do. A lot of white nights at Purdue. I remember many sleepless nights doing homework and also doing work. I was working at the same time as I was doing my PhD. This is my family, my Moroccan-American family. Noah is in medical school. He's the oldest now. And this little guy now is in University of Virginia. He's now grown. He's 18. Nora is 25, and she's a biomedical engineer at Boston Scientific in Boston. And Zain is, mashallah, he's also graduating this year from University of Virginia in computer science. And my wife, Jackie, she retired actually from the Air Force. And here's a young Mohammed and his wife, Jackie. George Washington University. Currently, I am an adjunct professor. I teach classes in marine power and also machines and electrical analysis. And I do that evenings. And as you know, a lot of teaching is now online. So we do WebEx or Zoom classes. And sometimes I do visit the campus and I go, collaborate with other professors. Next slide. Qatar University. I had a chance to teach there as well for 2 years. It was a wonderful experience. I encourage any of the students to actually go and experience that region of the world if they have an opportunity to. Worked also in electrical engineering and developed different courses, also contributed to the ABET or accreditation of that program at Qatar University. Was also able to contribute to some of the labs that they were developing there at the time. But there were also fun activities, that we had, social events. It was a wonderful experience. Next slide. This is to let you know that, yes, indeed, you can actually get patents. You can develop inventions. And, I was like you, young, and I did not know how the world worked. But as you learn, as you develop yourself, as you commit yourself, and as you persevere, you should be able to invent things and be parts of teams. Most of these patents are with as co-inventor with other engineers and scientists. The first two are in renewable energy. So that's how to extract energy from the sea waves. And these three is how to make electrical energy stable. When you connect something to the grid, it needs to stay stable. Also, don't forget social and volunteer work. So I'm a volunteer with IEEE and also a member of my society, which is the Electrical Engineering and Electronics. And this one here I obtained because of some support that I gave to solve some problems on board a ship that was a very critical issue that needed to be solved. And the chief engineer was kind enough to recognize that work, and I ended up getting that award. What I work on right now is renewable energy on the left-hand side. This is a device that, basically rocks on the waves. And then it is able to extract electrical energy from the motors that turn as this pendulum swings back and forth. On the right-hand side are some of the awesome ships that we work on. These are aircraft carriers that the US Navy uses to keep peace and security around the world. And my company actually builds these carriers. It's the only company in the world that builds this size carrier. They're 100,000 tons. So it's of displacement. So they're very, very large platforms. They carry a lot of airplanes. Next is my colleagues. This is a celebration event for contributing to one of the inventions. They're very smart people. I am lucky to actually be part of their team. And of course, in these times, as you can see, I'm also working from home down here. You can see my desk at home. I have computers, to do work, and I also have a university computer to do my teaching. This is to give you a sense of why the navies of the world do what they do. This picture is accessible to everyone. If you go to marinetraffic.com, you will get the real-time position of the ships that are at sea real time. And these ships are cargo vessels which carry merchandise. If you look at your phones that you have now, or the clothes you're wearing, or any of the things that you are using, 90% of that is probably shipped by sea. And so these, especially the green ones, are cargo ships all over the world. And the red ones are energy transporting ships or tankers. They either transport oil or natural gas or something to do with energy. And the navies of the world, the US Navy, the European Navy, even the Moroccan Navy, keep security on their borders, make sure that these ships can sail without any problems. And that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of logistics. It takes a lot of commitment on the part of these nations to keep all of this traffic moving with no problem. The interesting thing about this map is that you can actually access this link I have here, and it will tell you the position of these ships real time. You can also see the traffic between Morocco, Morocco over here, and Spain, and also the ships that are going back and forth between them. This is the other part of my work, which is to talk a little bit about energy. This is on the left-hand side are the energy sources, and the right-hand side are the loads or the uses of those energy sources. Energy sources can go from solar all the way to oil, and you can generate electricity, residential, transportation, and so forth and so on. Again, you can also connect wind. You can connect solar, and Morocco imports quite a bit of oil, a lot of coal, and I think the energy sector in Morocco is a beautiful sector that you can contribute to. So if you are looking for something to do in your career, think about energy, think about renewable energy, because that is still a very much needed business in Morocco. And the last slide I have is really think about nonprofits. As you improve your career, as you increase your knowledge, make sure that you volunteer, make sure that you give back. These are two of the societies or associations that I give back to. HMEMSA is an education and healthcare for orphans in Morocco, as well as folks that need some guidance here. And then Bloom is another one that we contribute to, that is building playgrounds for children in Morocco. And with that, I will thank you and wait for your questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Belkhayat. You know, speak of Moroccan success stories. You know, it's so your story is so inspiring. You know, very inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
You know, so you spoke about your colleagues and said how lucky you were to have a team like the one that you have right now, right? Well, guess what? I did my homework and I didn't speak to them, but I sent them an email. And this is what some of your colleagues and friends said about you, Dr. Belkhayat. It's just amazing. Thank you for your email, Mr. Hilali. It would be my honor to share with you the high esteem in which I hold my colleague and mentor, Dr. Belkhayat. Colleague and mentor, extraordinary. He is the highest ranking engineer. She did not say he's one of the highest ranking engineers. She just said outright, he is the highest ranking engineer.
Thank you.
I mean, I am so proud of having people like you represent us in America in such a beautiful way. You are one of the greatest ambassadors to our country, you know. And she goes on saying, in a company, and by the way, the company, if I may say, is not just any company. If I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Belkhayat, it's a Fortune 500 company. That too, I did my homework on, you know, I believe, you know. But you know, it's a company of over 20,000 employees, including approximately 3,000 engineers. His advice, talking about you, of course, Dr. Belkhayat, is sought after across the company for difficult troubleshooting questions in production and maintenance. But Dr. Belkhayat is particularly respected for his technical knowledge and his strategic vision as regards innovative research and development. Hallelujah. This is one of your colleagues, Dr. Mary Lawson. I have another one here, Doctor. I mean, it goes on and goes. I mean, we can stay here forever, you know, so I'm just giving you just a couple of sentences here, but this is just amazing. You know, it should make us all proud. And this is a message to my students that, you know, do like Dr. Belkhayat, dare to dream, dare to make a difference. He's no, I mean, I'm sorry to say, he's no better than us. He just had a dream and he was willing to fail and keep on failing until he succeeded. I have another one here. Muhammad's story, he's referring to you because you're his friend, I believe, is one of immigration, determination, persistence, and success, all while maintaining, most importantly, a sense of humanity that is rare among his peers today. I have known Dr. Belkhayat for 15 years. And in that time, I have found him to be extremely technically competent. He's saying the exact same thing, more or less, as Dr. Lawson. Knowledgeable, focused, and exceptionally productive. Exceptionally productive. All of these traits, while certainly admirable professionally and the envy of most of his peers, Muhammad considers secondary to his belief in God and his ability to apply the teachings and actions of Islam. Being of the Christian faith, I can honestly claim that I have not found another man in my lifetime as sincere and capable as Muhammad in living a life that most people of faith, Muslims, Christian, or otherwise would aspire to. Muhammad lives by the teachings of God every day and exhibits this in his love of his fellow man. And this is, I think, when you spoke about contributing and giving back, right, Dr. Belkhayat?
Yes.
And he goes on to say, and this is Dr. James Thurso, in summary, Muhammad has demonstrated countless times to be a superb engineer, outstanding American and Moroccan, and most importantly, a man that puts his faith and love of mankind above all else. This is so extraordinary, you know. You're making us all very proud, Dr. Belkhiyat.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to turn it over to our students, and I'm going to introduce to you our three students. And these kids have so many qualities. I am very proud of them. And I am 100% sure they will make it, inshallah. You know, they just have to listen to people like yourself and follow through, you know. We're gonna start with a question from, we'll start with the ladies first, okay? So we'll start with Yasmin Shrai. She's gonna ask you a question, Dr. Belkhiyat. Go ahead, Yasmin.
Hello, I'm Yasmin Shrai. I'd like to thank Mr. Hilali for this opportunity, of course, and thank Dr. Belkhiyat for speaking to us today. What we've heard about you and what you've told us is truly inspiring, and we hope to be able to live up to it. So I'd like to ask you, what can you tell young people who are struggling to find their passion and their path in life, who can't seem to find what they're supposed to do in life? What can you tell them, these young people?
Hi, Yasmin. Thank you for your question. And thank you also for the invitation and for listening to me for a while. It's always difficult, you know, to find your passion in life, especially if you have a little bit of doubt. So my answer to you is to try to remove that doubt. Oftentimes you will have an idea, okay? And that idea will be just a very, maybe a very small idea. But then you talk to your friends or you talk to other folks and they will discourage you from pursuing that idea. My answer to you is not to disregard those ideas, to listen to your heart, to listen to your imagination, and to pursue those ideas. Don't disregard those small ideas because those small ideas is where it starts. And you know, folks who discourage you and they haven't had that experience of doing the things you want to do, don't listen to them. So a lot of times doubt can kill those small ideas. And my advice to you is to remove that doubt. Do your best to remove the doubt. And to also learn from people who have succeeded in those areas that you're interested in, and to you know, just try to talk to them, try to email them, try to reach out to them. If they don't answer the first time, they may answer the second, third, fourth. One example was somebody who was trying to reach Elon Musk recently, and I think he wrote to him like 500 times on Twitter or something like that. And then finally, Elon Musk responded to him. So you have to try again.
Great.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, let's go to, I know you have more questions, Yasmin. I'll come back to you, okay? But let's go to Ismail Yaqoubi. Go ahead, Ismail.
Thank you, sir. So, Mr. Hilali, Mr. Belkhiyat, and fellow comrades, it is an honor and a privilege to speak with you today. But first of all, and before we begin, I would like to take this opportunity to place on record our hearty thanks to our honorable principal, Mr. Hilali, for organizing this webinar and to perpetuate and pass on the legacy of belief in his favorite word, excellence. We are thankful to you, Mr. Hilali. I may like to express our sincere gratitude to Mr. Belkhiyat for taking out time from his busy schedule and enlightening us with his knowledge and presence. We are much obliged to you, sir. Thank you.
You're very welcome. My pleasure, Ismail.
Thank you, sir. So before the question, I'm going to go back a bit when you spoke about failure. So I would like to say failure must be seen as a springboard for success. As God said, كل بني آدم خطاؤون وخير الخطاؤون التوابون. So the key is perseverance. So we should always persevere if we want to fulfill our dream.
Thank you. Thank you. That's, by the way, a hadith. It's not a verse, but the message is received.
Exactly. So my question is, if you could take a step back in time and go back to when you were our age, what would you change or choose differently, and why?
I think I may have alluded to it. I would have maybe, even though I feel, alhamdulillah, I feel that I've succeeded in pursuing a path of science, which is really at the core of my dreams, is to pursue science, engineering, and to contribute to the rest of my fellow men, is the idea. Maybe I could have pursued even higher dreams, which is I wanted to be an astronaut. And I wish I had, sometimes I wish I had stuck with that even further to pursue that. But, I haven't given up, by the way. I'm now, even at my age, I'm thinking about taking flying lessons. I would like to take some flying lessons when I have an opportunity. And also I am entering some, I'm entering some competitions where you can win a ticket to space or actually to the moon. So I'm keeping my options still open, and I'm still hoping. So I guess my message to you is to keep your dreams and keep them high, and do your best. Certainly, you have to adapt to the world sometimes. You can't make the world adapt to you. But keep your dreams. That's what I would do. I would even hold on stronger to my dreams. Thank you, Ismail.
Thank you, Dr. Boukhiyat.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Okay, now let's go to Sharif Sifi. Sharif Sifi.
Mr. Boukhiyat, I'm meeting to thank you for agreeing to speak to us and answer our questions about you and your profession. First of all, normally said that in education you had some failures. Did you had any problem to take your baccalaureate?
I came very close to not passing the baccalaureate, but I was lucky that I did. I remember that when I went home after taking the math exam and going over the questions with my uncle, that one of the questions I failed miserably in the math test. And I still remember the actual function that I had to plot, which was the logarithm function. And I didn't plot it right. And my uncle told me that I failed that exam. But luckily, I did very well on memorization of history and geography. And that kind of boosted my grade. So I ended up passing because of history and geography, and not because of math. Even though I grew up and I developed my career as a scientist. So I guess another point that you should never give up.
Excellent, excellent. Very well said, Dr. Boukhiyat. Now let's go back to Yasmin Sharai. You have a question, Yasmin, right?
Thank you, sir. I'd like to ask you, Dr. Boukhiyat, if you could give us a few habits that you believe we could implement in our daily lives and that can help us work towards success and achieve it the way you have.
Okay. So those are really easy for me. The two habits that I have, I think, ingrained in my life are a habit of learning, to always learn, to make sure that you're learning something every day, either through reading books or reading articles that are useful to your area, whether you're in arts or science or math or physics or engineering. Make sure you read something that's useful to you and learn every day. And the other is to keep also your body healthy, because it's very important to stay healthy. And so exercise. And if you can't exercise, then at least walk. So that's what I do now. I make sure that I do a little bit of exercise. When I was your age, I used to swim as part of a team. I was in the team of Kodem, the Mknes. So I loved swimming, and I, highly recommend that you take up a sports. You have to keep that balance between work and also physical exercise and activity.
Excellent.
Sir.
Ismail Yaqoubi, your turn. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. So talking about ships, it's incredible considering that 3 months ago, I made a presentation in relation to boats and vessels in front of American venture capitalists, and I was able to get the first prize. What a coincidence. So do you encourage us to invest in the maritime world? And do you think that this world will be prosperous in the future?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, congratulations on your
Thank you,
prize.
sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Morocco has more than 2,000 kilometers of shoreline. So you have the north, and you also have the Mediterranean, and you have the Atlantic. And so there are wonderful opportunities ranging from maritime research. You have maritime research that is just starting, keeping our shorelines healthy and making sure that we understand what's in them. So especially now with the recognition of the shoreline and the Sahara by the American administrations, I think it's very important to look at that area and go in business, whether you're building ships or you're doing research. That is wonderful. That's something that you should pursue.
It was about dismantling ships, shipbreaking.
Okay, that is also an important thing because as ships go to the end of their lives, then you need to take care of their hull and also recycling of that. You have to study the business case very carefully to make sure that you're not going to lose money. But it is very important to do that kind of work as well.
Okay.
By the way, that's a very insightful question.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, go ahead, Sharif Sifi. Question from Sharif Sifi, and then after that we'll have one more question from each student. Dr. Belkhiyat, I know you're a very busy man, and we'll finish off or wrap it up. Okay, go ahead, Sharif.
Mr. Belkhiyat, how did you choose to be engineer? Mostly we see that being engineer in Morocco is so difficult.
So for me, choosing the track of engineering was not very, very hard because I was already interested in science, and I was interested in building things. Even when I was young, I found a lot of joy and fun to build things, to build things with my hand. So when I pursued college, I naturally went to engineering and kept at it, just basically stayed persistent until I was able to get a good job. Morocco now has a lot of opportunities in all kinds of industries, ranging from aerospace to shipping, to agriculture, to all kinds of industries. So Morocco is in need of engineers, especially good engineers. And it's kind of interesting to see that the proportion of women engineers is increasing, and it's increasing even higher than the men. So you've got some competition out there, Sharif.
Okay, Yasmin, your turn. I think you have one more question, Yasmin, right?
Thank you. Yes, one last question. I think it does relate to a few things we've said already, but what is the single best piece of advice you could give us, and why, sir? Sorry.
You ask some tough questions, Yasmin. I actually sat yesterday at my desk and thought to myself, what should I say to the students? And it'd probably be not to doubt yourself. you know, in life, you're going to encounter a lot of challenges, and those challenges will make you doubt yourself. And when you doubt yourself, then you stop and you don't go forward and you give up. So my message to you is to keep the faith, to not doubt yourself, to learn from your mistakes, and to keep going. There's a wonderful, wonderful world out there, but you have to go out and, you know, take it and experience it. You can't stay home and, you know, and not do anything.
All right, excellent. Thank
you,
you,
sir.
You're welcome, Yasmin.
Thank you, Yasmin. Thank you. Those were some very, very interesting and nice questions. Okay, let's go now to Ismail. Ismail, you have another question, right?
So I still have several questions, but I would take the most important of them.
Okay,
so
go ahead.
Mr. Boukhiyat, do you advise us to go study, and why not live in the US later as young Moroccans?
I'm sorry, I didn't answer, I didn't quite hear that.
Oh, okay, I said, do you advise us to go study, and why not live in the United States later as young Moroccans?
Oh, you know, honestly, my advice is that verse in the Quran that says, "Ardullahi wasi'ah." God's earth is very large. So I recommend that you look at what you would like to do. Do you want to study certain things in Morocco because there are some interesting areas in Morocco, or do you want to go study in the US because you feel that it will increase your knowledge in certain areas? There's pluses and minuses to both, okay? In my case, I felt I wanted to go have the experience of the United States and actually learn in some particular universities, certain fields. And so I ended up, you know, coming to the United States. And I actually applied to France, and it didn't work out. And I applied to other universities in Morocco, and it didn't work out. You know, I applied to, for example, L'École Mohammedia d'Ingénieurs, and I wasn't able to make it. I also applied to L'École des Pilotes in Morocco, and I wasn't able to make it. So it really depends on your dream. If your dream is to go pursue education in the United States, then my answer to you is don't give up that dream. You can do it. But if you would like to have a successful business in Morocco, and that's your dream, then mashallah, look at Mr. Hilali. He's done that. He's your model. So you can do that in Morocco. You can achieve it in Morocco.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
So much. Very well said. Okay, one more question from the young man, Sharif Sifi. Yalla, Wuldi. Go ahead.
Mr. Boukhiyat, my dream is to be an engineer in robotics and computer science. What you can advise me in this field?
Oh, that's a wonderful, wonderful field. So, are you what are you in the senior year, high school, or which level are you in?
First baccalaureate.
Yes. So my recommendation to you is to have some hands-on. Are you familiar, for example, with the Lego robots?
Not yet.
Okay. So I highly recommend to you that you start a club in Lego robots. Get in touch with engineers who can provide you with some of those kits. Like myself, you can reach out to me, and I can help you get those kits. And get your hands busy. You have to actually experience some of those small engineering problems in robots and build a robot or two. You know, to have that experience under your belt. Then when you apply to a college or you apply for your job later, then you can say, look at what I built. I built this already. Okay, and you have that confidence. So my high advice to you is to get busy. Don't wait. Even if you don't have the kits, you can get on YouTube and go build those things. By the way, the Lego robot, I think it's called Next or something like that. I can help you find it. It's not very expensive. It costs something like 1000 dirham or 2000 dirham. And then you can build it on your own, and you actually can create competitions between other students that are interested in that.
Amen. Thank you so much, Dr. Belkhiat. You know, speaking of, if I may, Dr. Belkhiat, speaking of robots, we created a robotic club here in our school. Unfortunately, with the virus, the coronavirus, we had to postpone that project, you know, because I believe that's something important that we have our students learn, you know, robotics, you know.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Right?
That's great to know. One thing that you may be able to do is to possibly look into remote control of robots, so that through a website, you can actually control a robot.
Right. Yeah, we did some of that. We invested in some robots. I'm not sure exactly. I'm not too familiar with it, you know, but we were supposed to start it this year, and unfortunately it didn't work, but hopefully we'll do it very, very soon, because a lot of our students are interested, and I think that's something that's very important for the future,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Okay. I think we're going to wrap it up. I just want to recap, and first of all, I want to thank Dr. Belkhiat Mohammed. You know, it's such a pleasure that you took some of your time. I know you're a very, very busy man, but I just want to recap real quickly some of the things that you said, sir, that can inspire us, our students, and the future generations of our young kids here in Morocco and all over the world, for that matter. You know, you spoke about sleepless nights. You said you had so many sleepless nights before you got your PhD. And that's something very important for kids to know, that unless you are willing to put in the time, you will not get the result. That is so important. You know, you had spoken about trying and doing. You know, I had a mentor once tell me back in the States that even if you're staying home and doing nothing, like you said, Dr. Belkhiat, when luck comes, you're not there, it's not going to find you, you know. So you better, the first thing you got to do is get out of your comfort zone and make it happen. You will have to put in some time, you know. You also spoke about not being afraid of failure, you know. Failure is okay. You just have to do it over and over again. You also said that you have to dare to dream. Don't give up on your dreams, right? That's also very important. Another thing you said was don't doubt yourself. A lot of our kids today doubt themselves for some reason, you know, their surroundings and everything. They have to get out of that, you know. What people think of you is not your reality. When people tell you, you know, sometimes you meet people that can make fun of you and stuff like that. Don't let that make you stop. Keep on dreaming. So don't doubt yourself. And also another important thing you said, Dr. Belkhiat, is practice. You need to practice. As we say, practice makes improvement. I'm not going to say perfect. There is no such thing as perfection. But when you practice, you improve. You have to practice. So again, thank you so much, Dr. Belkhiat. It's been a pleasure. It's an honor to have met you. Yeah, I know you're doing some wonderful things over there. Please, when you come to Morocco, come and see our students. They are very excited to meet you and hopefully shake your hand when this virus is gone, right? Until next time, Hilali Targa International School students, stay safe and remember, knowledge is power. Thank you, students.
Thank you. Thank you very much.